Hi, it's Jane. And on WOTWIP and Friday, WOTWIP and Friday, WOTWIP and Coffee, today I am drinking limeade. That is one of my favorites. The only other thing, besides crazy hair, is today is going to be a yarn winding edition because Ronan got a hold of the yarn out of the tote. He managed to finally get it out of there, and so it needs to be rewound into a cake. And then I'm going to work on this tote that has all these different yarns to wind some of those up into a cake. So it'll be ready to go for the set this down here. So it'll be ready to go when I start, not start, because I've already got it started. Once I get the blanket working on it. It is cold and dreary and wet here. Very wet. It has been pretty nasty. I left out this morning and I could swear that the bamboo waved at me as I left and let me know that by the time I got home it'd be at least 3 feet higher than what it normally was. Kidding. But it loves the rain, so it's gonna thrive real well. And of course, all the weeds around, they thrive just as well. Only thing that doesn't thrive is me. And that's just because I'm tired of all the craziness with that yarn. So, yeah. I have to tell you, I think our president has some pretty big cojones. What he did with the fellow from South Africa in that meeting and their delegation, it took a lot of nerve to do. And it probably needs to be said. Of course, you have the mainstream media that's out there. Oh, it's not really going on like you said, and blah blah. Then you're completely unaware and you have no idea what's going on in the world, because it has been happening for quite some time. There is a documentary on YouTube that outlines what has been happening to many of these farmers, and the name of that is South Africa, the Killing Fields, and it details quite a couple of real stories of what happened to some of these white farmers, that at the dead of night is when these monsters show up and do their killing and all kinds of horrible things. So it's happening, folks. And even if you have your left-wing media that's not talking about it openly, just know that they're lying. And they are. And they have good reason to lie. I am friends with someone on Facebook. She's a young lady that was in the Star Trek. My husband was the advisor for the Star Trek club there at the university for many years. And she was a member of that club, her and her first husband. And, well, her first husband really never came. But we did different trips together, those kind of things. And on one of the trips, she came home to find him in bed with one of his high school sweethearts in her bed. So she divorced him. But we've stayed friends throughout the years, and she has since got remarried, has a beautiful, lovely daughter. But she'd posted the nonsense about the Ben and Jerry, you know, Ben, I'm trying to think of his last name, who had the big tirade in the hearing, you know, and supposedly it was about genocide, children, Palestine, all this nonsense and everything else. And I had said to her, well, you know, there is time and place for that kind of thing, and in a Senate hearing that has nothing to do with it, that is not the right place. So that's why he was arrested, because you just can't do that. There are some rules that when you're in Washington you need to follow, and if you're in a hearing, you're not allowed to protest like that and do the things that you do. But we see the left do it all the time. So, you know, the rules never apply to them. But she had pointed out, because I'd said something about that, and she goes, well, anything to protest this, the Orange Man, or something like that. And I said, oh, so it's not really about the genocide at all? It's just who holds the office? And she had said yes. And if that's your stance, you got a problem, folks. You know, I understand that you don't like the man. I didn't like Obama. But there were things that he did that were decent. There are a lot of things that he did to destroy this country. And quite frankly, set it back about 100 years. But this nonsense that you got going on, you need to really think about it. Is it really working? Are you doing anything? You doing anything positive for your community with what you're doing? I don't think so. So maybe you should figure out how to work within your community to help your community and help the people around you instead of just being an ugly agitator. And that's exactly what you're doing when you do some of these things. But yeah, check into it. There's a lot of things that are going on around the world that they're quite awful. So don't be in the dark. Pay attention to those things. Pay attention what goes on around the world around you, and not just your own little fiefdom. And, you know, if you really want to work to make it a better place, volunteer in some of these countries to help out. So, either that or volunteer in your community, do something positive instead of all this negativity that you're putting out there. And that's all it is that you're putting out there, is total negativity. And I will tell you, I have always questioned what has gone on with Biden, just because I'm going to tell you, having been in the nursing field, I've seen a lot of patients that had Alzheimer's, and he demonstrated every one of those things. So it bothered me, because if he had Alzheimer's, I don't know how he ran the country. And now it's coming out that it looks like he didn't make a lot of those decisions, that a lot of the administration did, and we didn't vote them in. So that's going to be pretty interesting, what comes of that nonsense. Yeah, I'm going to call it nonsense, because it all is nonsense. Seems to all wind up being a bad place for America. I do find it interesting. There was a young woman, was it South Carolina or Georgia? Black woman, that was murdered by some illegal residents from Honduras. And the media has been absolutely quiet about her. And this is where I find the media complicit in what's going on in our country. Because they are not they're not telling the true stories of what's happening in the U.S. They just aren't. And like I said, they're complicit in a lot of what's happening because they ignore it. You know, they don't want you to know that it's actually happening and that there are many people that are being killed by some of these different gangs that are from different countries. Because that wouldn't fit the narrative of, you know, Orange Man bad and everything he does is bad. But then again, we have ignored our borders for far too long, and it has created problems for us. So, anyway, it's kind of my little soapbox today. So what are you guys working on today? Do you have anything special that you're trying to get finished for anything? I know that a lot of you probably have youngins, grandkids that are graduating, either high school or kindergarten or 6th grade into middle school or 5th grade into middle school. I think it depends on what part of the country you're in and where they go. Or high school graduates that are getting ready to go to college. College graduates that are ready to start putting their information out there to work in the workforce. Stirring up all that cat hair going right up my nose. I saw that Creative Grandma had done some swatches of Crystal's tonals. So that should be interesting to see what they worked up, and in the stitches that she chose. And I'm kind of excited about getting to see the video that they did with the workshop for the soap sacks. So I'm hoping Cody gets everything done that he needs to get done with the editing and everything and gets it up there pretty quickly, because inquiring minds want to see. I hope he gets his car issue fixed. I didn't watch Tuesday's video yet. Sometimes I get way behind just because of everything I've got going on here. Usually my catch-up time is Sunday afternoons for a lot of these channels that I love to watch. So it's not Sunday afternoon yet. And these are those penguin yarns that were in the That's the band for it. It's in this big bag, this big tote bag. I'm going to do some of this white, and hopefully I can combine, or off-white, hopefully I can combine some of it. And it's a real thin yarn. I would say it's probably somewhere between a 2 and a 3. It really reminds me of Mandela 3-weight, that lightweight 3-weight. So that's what I'm going to call it. But it does work up pretty good, pretty nice when you put it in different projects. Some of these scrappy blankets like that. Thought I would show you the bracelet that they gave us at that conference. Someone had made a bunch of these, and we got to pick one. And I had decided not to be picky in the bracelet that I chose, so I reached into the basket and grabbed one. And it was a brown one. Of course, you know my favorite color is greens and purples. So then when we did the exchange, the gal brought me a green bracelet. So I thought that was interesting. And I know some of the ladies in my group have heard back from the people that they traded cards and phone numbers with. Some of us have not heard from our person. I did text my persons. I say persons because the one gal, I just walked up to her trying to find the other gal. And just to see if she knew who she was, because I didn't go to their church, you know. And I thought maybe she did go to their church because she was sitting with one of the gals that was a presenter. And so that was interesting. So when I texted her, I said, "This is the crazy lady that approached you, looking for Caitlin." So she's hoping that you're having a good day, and gave her a little positive affirmation, and went on my merry way. Kind of sent a little different message to the young lady that I had gotten the card, and we had exchanged bracelets and things. So, and of course you never know if they're in school studying, what they're doing. She looks like she might have been college age, so. And the woman that I do the Thankful Thursday Bible study with, she has kind of offered to help them with some of the organization things that they need. And so we're excited about that. And we had told her before she left, basically try to make sure that they do coffee. They had no coffee there. There was water, bottled water, and we were grateful for that. But the only drinks that were available were liquor in the bar. You couldn't even get a soda drink. So, not too thrilled about that part, but You know, it is what it is, and sometimes you just deal with whatever happens. So, but anyway, we'd made some suggestions. It would be nice if they could find a way to do some coffee there. And some of the ladies had said the year before there were things like cappuccinos and different offerings like that. So it most likely they have the ability to do that since they do events there. You know, like weddings and stuff like that. So it's just getting someone in to provide it or the equipment. Lots of times it's just making sure there's coffee, carafes that can be filled. And I know, looking back in the back, where they had some of the extra food sitting, they did have equipment to make coffee, so I don't know why they don't sell it there, other than it's, well, the battery died, but otherwise, you know, it looked like they did have some place that they could, some way to make coffee or offer tea or something like that. But, other than that, it was pretty much uneventful, and it was great to have great adventure. We have someone in our group that has offered up her home for a swim party in July. One of our members had gone to a Korean ramen noodle restaurant in State College, so we're, you know, talking about that might be a nice fun adventure to do. And you know, we're crazy enough we'll do it all together. So, the Awana Awards were this week, so Awana is finished for the year. So, get a little bit of rest from that. And I love my Awana kids because they're very special. Very special indeed. And I'm pretty sure this yarn is a Vanna White yarn. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's pretty dusky pink. So, let me check and see what this message is on my phone. Crazy. Cats have been rather interesting today, since it's been raining all day. But anyway, I hear a lot of people complaining about the way that they have changed the TikTok's, I guess, pay, the way that they do it. And I know TikTok has made quite a few people a very generous income throughout the year, as well as those who do sell there on TikTok. Because there are quite a few businesses that have made millions selling through the TikTok shop, which is a good thing, regardless, you know. And I think I was reading somewhere where Trump was going to reduce the tariffs even further. If they make a deal around TikTok. I know if it went away, I would miss it. That is my guilty pleasure. Many times at the end of the night before I go to bed is to watch TikTok videos and catch up on things. And you know, one of the things you need to be careful is if you're watching those, you need to be careful that some of the information you aren't taking just verbatim as being absolute truth. Always do your research. You know, look it up. A quick Google search will tell you the truth, so. I have seen quite a few videos that were only partially true. But generally I watch them for some of the funnier ones or thought-provoking ones. Follow a large Christian community there. I'm going slow because getting pretty close to being at the very edge where it won't wind properly. But I'm still going. Still got a little bit more I think I can get on there. But I do enjoy watching the TikTok videos. Like I said, that is my guilty pleasure. Before I go to bed at night, watching a couple of those, getting a couple of laughs, a couple of things that make me go, huh? I need to look into that, what they're saying, see if it's true. And I do find it funny because one of the fellows, I think it's Harry Sisson. Nothing he ever says is true. It's only partially true. I mean, when you go and you do the research, you find out he doesn't get it. He's so far off from the truth, it's not even funny. Have a lot of people complaining about the no tax on tips, you know, but they haven't bothered to do their homework and kind of follow what that actually says. The IRS considers cash tips because they're using it's only on cash tips, so a lot of people don't pay with cash. They pay with their debit card or credit card, tip that way, and it means we'll have to continue to pay tax on them. But then the IRS considers cash tip anything that is made with debit card, credit card, electronically, all kinds of things. I believe even Venmo and Cash App and Google Pay, Apple Pay, I think those all get grandfathered in there, so tips are safe, folks. And that's a good thing. And I'd watched a video that I'm not so sure about, and I think it was Texas Roadhouse that the gal worked at was saying that that the wait staff is charged 10% of what the night's take is in, where they have to pay in 10% of whatever the amount is sold for the entire restaurant their shift. And I don't think that's quite right. I don't think that's legal. I do know that when I did waitress, we generally gave our bus people 10% of what we took in. Of course, that was back when, 10% was a decent tip, supposedly. That's what the going rate for tips were, 10%, instead of this 20 and 25 and whatnot. So, and that's another thing that I find interesting, because if you follow some of those receipts, and Olive Garden is one of them that does it. Like it'll say an 18% tax on, say, $16 is $4.18 or something like that. No, it's not. I mean, if I had a $16 bill, 20% of that's $3.20. It's not $4.18. And then it came to light that what's happening is that's an amount that is generously given to the managers. Well, managers always got a better pay rate than us waitresses, so I don't feel like I need to be tipping the manager. Just don't. So you need to watch those when you go to check out and where you see it's tip. Use your phone and figure out if they're actually charging you more if you do the automatic. Let them add in the automatic tip. And generally I tip according to my service, so. There's times I've had, where my total cost was about $13, and I've tipped $5 or $6 because I thought the person did a terrific job and was very attentive and, was constantly checking on us and our needs and that kind of thing. So I don't always tip according to their little scale. But I would advise you to watch their scale, because a lot of people are finding that it's not accurate. 18% tip of $16 is not $4.18. I don't care how you add that up. There ain't no way it comes up to that. Especially when 20% is only $3.20. So, there's that. Oh, here's that beautiful scarf yarn. Oh, where'd my little band go? I don't know where it went. There it is. Sorry about that, folks. Look at the top of my head, see my balding spot. I have, in the sewing room, I have been working on some sort of Bible covers, maybe just book covers, glasses cases, some more coin purses. I have been working on a verse pillow for someone. I had someone who asked me to make a verse pillow for him, and that's embroidery, so that's another beast of another story in getting that done. So mostly it's the hard part is the embroidery. I have to manually put the verses in the machine and then stitch it out and then put in the next verse or verse reference and that kind of thing. But I'm liking the way that it's coming out. And then I was wanting to make myself a prayer journal cover. And the prayer journal that I was wanting to make it for is actually just a regular binder notebook, but has some different sections in it because I think it's important, when you're praying, but also to be able to put in there and see that it was answered prayer. And sometimes when people ask us to pray for them or pray for family members, we never get an idea of whether the prayer was answered, whether it was answered the way they had asked for it or answered in a different way. But we don't always get that confirmation that the prayer was answered. So sometimes it pays advantage to go and ask the person, so do I still need to pray for you? Do I still need to be praying for this issue? That kind of thing. And I always tease them because, many times they'll ask me, so what do you need prayer for? And I'm like, that bamboo. And they just laugh at me. And they know it's one of those things that it is an ongoing battle for probably the next 5 to 6 years. So, yeah. Just work what you can and do what you can with it. You see that fuzz? That's fuzz coming off of this. Scarfy I think it's got 10% wool in it. I think, if I remember correctly. I just find it funny that it's got so much fuzz coming off of it. And this color here, I think, is stunning. It's that dark royal blue with the black. Of course, the few times I was working with Scarfy yarn, I could never find this color. I don't know whether it just wasn't carried in my area or it was so popular that everybody got to it before I could. Oh, now we've got a tangle. Oh, I hate when the tangles happen. Look at that. I have a friend that whenever she would see yarn and it get tangled, she'd just reach for the scissors and cut. She'd say, I don't know why you just don't cut it. I said, because I think that's a waste. I don't want to waste the yarn. She'd say, just cut it. Just cut it. Of course, this is also the friend that she was knitting baby slippers and or baby booties, and she couldn't figure out what to do in this next part of it because she didn't understand the directions. And of course, she was also one of these that when she'd start getting tense, she'd get even tighter on her stitches, and she couldn't get her needle into the stitches, to continue knitting. So she would just cut it. And we would just tease her about it, be like, don't do that. You need to learn to relax, and work through the problem, and get it solved. It'll be okay. She'd say, nope, cutting it. Not worth it. She doesn't do that anymore. But when she was first relearning to knit, she was doing that. So, see how far we can get with this. Oh, yeah, I was afraid it was going to do that. Yeah, we're just bunching up down around it. Around the base. Time to do it by hand, a little bit on the outside. Then undo it. Wind it around and play with it. Untangle. Play with it. Untangle. Play with it. So, do you have any specific summer plans for your knitting or crochet or anything? I know I have thought of doing some certain things that summer related, but then I'm like, maybe not. Maybe I'll just play it by ear and see how it goes. I think I might have to put this one down because it is getting cantankerous. Do that while I'm watching my soap opera. Yeah, I still watch soap operas. I'm still pretty much hooked on certain soap operas. You know, I've been a Days of My Lives fan since I was probably 6. Because, like I said, my dad would come home from work and put it on. His big thing is back when Doug and Bill and Dawn. I think we're always at each other's throats. Yep. Although many of those actors that I used to watch on Days of Our Lives now are gone. Some of them passed away. Quite a few of them passed away. All right, I'm going to pause you for a minute. So, it kind of seems weird that I've been watching that show for the longest time. And I can remember some of those storylines. Some of them, you would see where they'd come up and they'd refer back to them, but they had changed a few things in the storyline. And I used to laugh because my girlfriend and I, we'd watch hers, which was Another World. And if you never watched Another World, you missed a whole lot. Because talk about going down fantasy road. That one was quite interesting. But both of these storylines, you know, we both knew them by heart because we've been watching them forever. So when something would happen and we didn't like the outcome of whatever the story was, we're like, they need to talk to us. We have a better story finish for that than theirs. So we used to giggle about that kind of thing, you know. But, my favorite storyline with Another World was when Cass got kidnapped by the gorilla, that kind of stuff. Now, Thomas used to tolerate my watching Days of Our Lives because he was always home for lunch during that time. But then there came a period of time where they quit showing that and they moved it to a later time of the day. And what they were showing in its place was Passions. He loved Passions, especially when Timmy was on there. Of course, Timmy passed away, had some cardiac issues, and the actor that played him passed away. But he absolutely adored the show Passions. So I always think it was funny, you know, because I'd be like, yeah, you make fun of me and my storylines, and here it is, you're all gaga over the Passions one. And you know, sometimes you wonder where these writers come up with these ideas. Because they're so farcical, you know. I don't think those things really happen in real life time, real daylight, you know, people's lives, but it was always interesting to see some of the storylines they came up with. Of course, with Days of Our Lives, you know, Marlena was possessed by the devil. They brought that story back a couple times. Not so much her being possessed, but the devil moving from Salemite to Salemite. You know, landing in her grandson's. I think it was her grandson. Yeah, her grandson. So, Always found those funny to watch. Storylines and, you know, what makes them think that that made a good storyline. But apparently it worked because ratings were constantly up during that time. And of course, the sad thing is the best villain, the most loved villain in the world, was Stefano Demera. You know, Thomas used to laugh and he'd say, I don't understand why they consider him. He said, he always gets away with all kinds of things. I said, yeah, I know, but for some reason, we all love Stefano Demera. So that used to crack me up. All right, I think I am going to finish this up here. I'm going to let you guys go. Hope you have a great weekend. I hope it's not rainy where you are. It's been cold and rainy around here. It's been cool enough that I've had to have the heater on. And we're at the end of May. That's kind of odd, so who knows. All right, everybody have a great weekend. I'll see you again soon. And try to do something kind today. Bye.